Comcast RISE grant kind of came into fruition, like right at a time that I was about to need some funding and didn't really realize it was coming. But at this time, it was like, okay, how am I going to stretch the dollar? I have to keep my people working. And I saw Comcast and it was super simple.
What's up, you guys? It's your girl Bianca B, and welcome to the Bianca B Show, where we talk about business, finances, and friendships. So I'm super excited about today's guest. She is the founder of Foundation Management LLC. She also is the host of her show, All Things Behind the Scene podcast. If you're in Detroit, she has been working extremely hard, and she's just such a boss. And I've been following her brand for a few weeks now and just seeing what she's been doing. And I'm super excited to have her on today. Nina Payne, how are you?
I'm doing pretty fabulous, Bianca. Thank you so much for having me on the show. Really appreciate this.
Awesome. So kind of tell me a little bit about your foundation and your event planning, Foundation Management LLC. Kind of just tell our viewers a little bit about what you do.
Well, we are a full service suite event management and production house. We also have an event staffing company. So if you ever need any support when it comes to medium, large scale events on the corporate side, we offer event support, event leads, event supervisors, production managers, event managers, stage managers, anything to support the event as a whole, except for catering. So we don't serve drinks. So all of the other things. And so we've been I started Foundation Management years ago in 2000. And we were an artist management and special events company. So I've always done events, but everything that I did was entertainment. So working with artists, press conferences, concerts, festivals, all the things, traveling. And I got off the road in 2015 and decided to switch everything over to still loving to do events, but I wanted to do corporate events where I can actually pay a living wage to team members. I can teach them some skills. We could talk about conflict resolution and customer service and really developing, team members that can actually use the skills that I teach them from working with me and go anywhere in the world to work. That's, really what I would like to do.
And you mentioned customer service. That is such a big component into running a business. And so what were some things that you learned, like as you've grown throughout your careers that you may have not been educated through like a long time ago, especially with relationships?
I think you hit the nail right on the head, Bianca, because I think one of the things that wasn't exposed to younger is building collaborational relationships, right? Networking, being involved in different organizations, whether it's a professional organization or a Greek organization. I wasn't involved or exposed to any of that. And so my parents they would go to work and come home. My mom was a real estate agent, so she would do some networking with real estate agents, but you know what I mean? There wasn't a huge networking component. So I wasn't introduced to that to really after college and when I started in entertainment, because entertainment is really about who you know and what your relationships are, whether or not you can do the job. Right. So once I got that, I was like, oh, I need to kind of figure out this whole, like, who I need to connect with. And then that carried on and carried on. I just wish I had known that my younger self. If I'd have told myself that a long ago, I think my network and my reach would be a whole lot wider even today.
Yeah, and a lot of people too, when it comes to a business, some people are super creative, but don't have the people skills. So if you're someone who is an introvert or somebody who's a homebody, but so creative, what are some tips that you can give to people with, starting to put their work out there?
It's interesting. I think it really depends on what kind of work you do, right? There's a ton of different work that's remote, behind the scenes, and nobody ever sees who's running the show. You know what I mean? And so there's tons of different ways that you can kind of present and be creative and be behind the scenes. As one of the things we talk about on the show is that I want to give light to people who work behind the scenes, the faces that you never see. They're not looking to be in front of the camera. They're not looking for the limelight, but they do amazing work. And I want to be able to shine a light on the things that they're doing. And so as an introvert, I would just make sure you look for and research those types of opportunities that you don't have to be out in the camera. And I think that's okay. You don't have to be somebody who has to be out front. Yeah. And that's okay. You know what I mean? Because you get these different messages. You have to have, do all the things and do all the Instagram and be, faces your brand and all of that. And all of that is good for somebody who wants to do that. But it's okay to make decisions for yourself that's best for you. And that's across the gamut when it comes to running your company.
And your podcast is all things behind the scenes, which I love that you do that, because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people
So much.
so much. Oh my God. So kind of tell me how you decided to start this podcast.
Yeah, it's so interesting because you know how during COVID,
Mhm.
really, it was something that I can even back up further. When I was on the road and doing tour management, anytime I saw a woman, especially doing roadie, doing lights, doing sound, anything technical, or I just was just in awe. And I always made sure we kept in touch and I high fived, and because it's tough out here in a male dominated world doing behind the scenes stuff that they don't think you can do.
Mhm.
And so they doubt your ability to do the thing. And so I was always just intrigued by that, the people that do all of these amazing things and that don't necessarily get the credit. It's not necessarily that they're looking for the credit, but I just think it just needs to be exposed more. One, who's doing the stuff, and two, what are they doing?
Right.
I know an amazing lighting director that's on tour right now that's killing the game, and she's a young woman. And
Mhm.
so it's a rarity, and
Are
she's
you talking about Erica?
yes, of
Yes, that's
course.
my
I
girl.
trained Erica. Let's go back.
Yes.
Erica was on the road with me. Let's, don't get it twisted, Erica. We did all the things together, and that's how she learned her thing, learned her craft, and we were on tour together. And so, like, just finding those gems, and there's so many out there. And then being able to kind of have the conversation with them about what they do, why they do it, why is the head down, do the work, a thing, what does it take to kind of do the things that they do? There's so many thousands of details that have to be managed in all of these different areas. And I just want to expose them to people that may not know. You're in entertainment, so you understand people want to be backstage, but do they really want to be backstage?
Right. Yeah.
We can understand standing in the curtain, you can't hear a thing. It's, hectic back there. Like, it's not the place to actually watch a show, but people want to, do that. And we want to talk about those types of things on the show. And so I'm excited about it. We're coming to a close in our first season
That's amazing.
and looking forward to kind of building the second one.
That's amazing. And so being a woman and being, a woman of color, we have to talk about, like the struggles or like things that you had to face throughout your career. Were there any of those pivotal moments for you that were eye-opening? And what advice would you give to young girls who are from Detroit? I can speak for myself, being from Detroit and working in film behind the scenes and also in front. Behind the scenes, there's so much stuff and so much politics that I'm glad at 17 I experienced that, and now being 29 I'm like, oh, that taught me what I needed to know. Like, that is why I had to go through that. So were there those moments in your life, and what advice would you give to young girls out there?
Yeah, I don't think those moments ever stop. I'm walking into rooms where I'm an only brown face and I have to know my stuff.
Yeah.
So if I don't know my stuff, and I have to know my stuff, and I know this is cliche to say, but I have to know it and I have to know all of theirs. Like, you have to know, because I've been in these rooms, I've been interviewed by 40 people throwing questions at me because they want to try to trip you. They want to try to figure out, oh, she doesn't want, she's doing this little black girl is in here trying to get this major contract. And my friend has the same company. They could do, kind of thing. And literally, I need to know my stuff, their stuff, think about what the future things are going to be, understand how their past, and you have to show up and be confident in that. That means doing your homework, right? So being able to kind of really spend some time researching and delving into the client itself or the project itself, or all of the things. You have to do all the things. That's what we call it, all the things behind the scenes. But you have to know all the things. So confidence is key in
Yeah.
walking into some of these places. And then too, like a lot of the things that we deal with being women and being Black women, it's just the building confidence after you get over something. So what happens is you meet this wall, and I call this mountain, the mountain shows up, right? And you have to make the decision that regardless of what's going on, I'm getting on the other side of this mountain.
Yeah.
And it could be, race, sexism, or whatever. And so dig a hole, climb it, go around it, get a helicopter, whatever you need to do, but you need to get over this mountain. And there is no other option. And once you start to do that and then be able to conquer a couple of these things, right, it becomes like your muscles are tuned to when you walk into the room and you see it. You're like, oh, here we go. Okay. All right, mountain.
Yeah.
It'll build more confidence as you keep going. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Keep going. You might have to back up and figure it out. Like, you might have to call one of your old school homies or your grandma and say, I got the situation. What do you think I should do? And then you attack that mountain again. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so that's kind of the cadence. After a while, you've been doing it so long, I recognize it very quickly and I'm able to kind of pivot around whatever situation we need to pivot around to get on the other side of the mountain.
I love that you mentioned pivot. I think that that was something that I learned within this past year, was learning how to pivot. And being from Detroit, I feel like I have to tap into my street smarts and be like, okay, pivot.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep,
Yeah.
it's a hurdle. I have to pivot. And I totally can relate to that. So I also wanted to talk about Comcast RISE and how did they improve your business and help you?
Comcast RISE grant kind of came into fruition like right at a time that I was about to need some funding and didn't really realize it was coming. And so I had a large client. It was during COVID. We actually did really well because we had a couple large clients. But there was this moment and they pay out, net 90 at times. And I needed to be able to stretch the dollar between one point and the other and had not really had the opportunity because I was a new corporate company and had a lot of large clients. But at this time, it was like, okay, how am I going to stretch the dollar? I have to keep my people working. And I also need to be able to provide training. I need to purchase uniforms. Like there was this moment where between the thing. And one of my colleagues sent that to me, everybody was like sharing grants and, opportunities, PPP and small business loans at COVID time. Businesses were all sharing information so we all could stay afloat. And I saw Comcast and I read the eligibility requirements. And it was super simple. It was, living in Detroit and they were doing it all over the country in certain cities. It was being a small business owner. It was being a minority or, woman of color, being I was like, oh, those are the correct, that's it? Oh, I think I might be able to be eligible for this. And when I saw that, even the application part was really simple because some of those applications, and I know is 25 pages. They want your firstborn, they want your mom's cousin's dog's maiden name. It's like, all of these different things. But the application wasn't like that. It was straightforward. It was simple. They just wanted to know more about you so that you could fill out the information if you knew, you know what I mean, be able to provide your finances and stuff like that. And once I saw that, it was a shoo-in. It was like, oh, I can do this. And I had never, ever applied for a grant prior to that. It was just one of those moments I kept reading them and it kept coming. And I was like, I don't know if it was fear or if it was just something unknown because I had never had to ask for money before. And so now I am, asking for money. And that's a whole nother pride thing that, culturally we go through.
Okay, I was just gonna go into that. Finances are a huge portion of a business. I mean, and actually with event planning, knowing your worth, and knowing how much you should receive and how much you should give to others, because it's not only yourself, but you have a staff too. So was there a moment in your career where you started learning your worth and knowing like how much to charge?
That's always an interesting question. And being in a new part of business, like when I was in entertainment, I would, same thing. I started out, I was asking the questions, doing the research. I had to make a decision about what my time was worth. And I got a lot of different information from a lot of different people. And if if you Google one thing, you fall down a rabbit hole. And so oftentimes it's way too much information. You're still not making a decision. So I had to make a decision about what my time was worth hourly. How much do I want to make weekly, daily, yearly as a small business owner? And then what was possible. And then because of the skills that I have, I've got 23 years in business. And so there is some credibility to that. Even though it wasn't in corporate, management has always been my thing. That's what my degree is in. And so I looked at all of those things and being able to set my price on what that threshold looked like. I will never go under this price. And so will cover me. This will cover my expenses for a while. Makes me comfortable, all of that. I have this cushion. And so I started there and then built up from those numbers. I had to just make the decision how much I want to make. You know what I mean? And then do I have the credentials to back that up? That's the piece right there that oftentimes people, they just want to, I want to make, $500,000 this year. That's wonderful and great. but do you have the credentials to back that up to be able to get the body of work that matches that? And
Mm.
so just for your audience, just be careful about just throwing out a number, and I'm all about manifestation, but
Okay.
make sure that you have the body of work and the experience and the reputation to be able to pull that type of number.
Yeah, and that's such a great advice because even with the film industry, like sometimes you have to do a PA work to get to a executive producer position.
Absolutely.
Like there's so many different areas. And like with event planning, where did you start? Like I know you started music, but did you shadow someone? Did you like look at someone else's work? Did you have a mentor? What was kind of like your process with event planning?
You know, I actually started doing events in high school.
Oh,
It
wow.
is a spiritual gift. It's a gift of administration. I learned out, once I started going to church and realized that these are gifts that God gives you. And I did a girlfriend's baby shower and graduation party, and the father gave me $50 after I did the work. Right, this is what we were doing. I was that friend that always planned everything and did all the things. I was that friend, so it was nothing to me to do it. I enjoyed it, but when he pulled me aside and said, "You have here's $50," I was like, "Oh, I could probably actually make money doing this."
Mhm.
And so it was a natural organizational gift. I've had organizational businesses. And so it because it came natural to me to stay organized and be detailed and structure and literal. It's been that way since I was a little girl and my room was spotless. Like it's just always kind of been that thing. And then I picked up along the way other people who were doing what I was doing and just kind of, compared notes, said, "Oh, I think that's probably a good idea. I might be able to add that to my repertoire of things that I'm doing." I still do that. I
Yeah.
still do that to this day. I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly sharpening my skills. I'm constantly asking questions. I'm constantly just making sure that I'm on top of my game. And there's so many different ways to do one thing that
Mhm.
my way may not be working for me anymore. And I have to look at, other ways to kind of um, you know, always be ready to be innovative. You know what I mean? And so it's a constant growth. I think everybody should be kind of ready to be, educated constantly, always being open to what what's for you so that you can then continue to sharpen your skills. And so event planning from general came natural, but as I started to move into music, as I started to get my degree, and I actually I was operations director at a tech firm, and so I did a lot of different management prior to even starting my business,
Oh,
and
wow.
I think that was helpful, right? I led a team of 55 FTEs and multi-million-dollar budgets, and so that in corporate America really did help me kind of figure out how I wanted to structure the company, and then having the management skills helped me to hone the event planning side of it, and that's why I call it event management because my event management skills, I could manage a bunch of different planners underneath the umbrella of event management, as opposed to just being the planner, having one thing to work on. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And then, being you're a boss, you're a leader. And a lot of people, when they have a business and say, for example, your business is growing and elevating and it's becoming too much for just the individual person, how do you learn how to not micromanage?
Bianca, have you met me? Did I say I was controlling? I am. I think over the years it comes from trusting your people.
Mm.
With this team that I have now, they are amazing. They have my back. They get it. They show up. They're ready to work. I have to talk less, and I can trust that they have it. And they've proven that over and over and over and over again. But I still have a tendency when something is amiss, or when somebody has some life thing happen and they disappear, right? Because they have to handle that, then I'm like, the glue is now been, wet and it's now slipping. And I have to just make sure that things are the way that I need them to be for this particular client. And so I have learned to delegate. I've learned to trust my team. I've learned to validate them when they do things that are amazing, constant praise, constant correction as well, just like tweaking different things and that sort of thing. And now we've got this cadence of, doing the things, and team is showing up the way they're supposed to. And so then I'm able to kind of pull back and work on the business and not in the business so
Mhm.
that we can continue to grow.
I love that you say that validate your employees because I feel like a lot of people don't feel appreciated sometimes when working for other people. And that's a good key component. I
Yes.
just want to say thank you for taking the time out to chat with me. What is next for your business and your podcast? You know, you're wrapping up season 1. What's
Yeah. I have so many things, Bianca. So, I also do documentary filming, by the way. It's a whole thing. So I got into doing video production in COVID. We went from in-person events to virtual events, and things needed to be recorded. And so I've always had a passion for that. So I've done some one-man stage plays where I've directed and produced them. I'm doing some documentary about women in fibroid crisis, birthing stories of women, birthing stories for fathers. And so I've been contracted to do these amazing stories and do storytelling. And I really, really, really do love it. And so for me, I also am going to do storytelling around events and, all of that. So it really helps with the podcast as well. And so I'm doing that. Our second season of All Things Behind the Scenes, Events and Entrepreneurship, we're going to be on location. So we're going to do some in-venue interviews with the event management teams, at concerts, behind stages, so people can kind of see the setup and design before the people get in the room. I just have all kinds of ideas, and I'm looking forward to just, executing and then continue to build my team. My staffing side of the company is growing leaps and bounds, and I am just looking to, build a rock solid, hard team that I can duplicate across the country. And so that we have staffing opportunities nationwide for people who want to learn about event support.
I love that. Thank you so much. Make sure you guys follow me at Bianca B Show at It's Bianca B. Thank you guys for listening. Bianca B, Bianca B, Bianca B, Bianca B, Bianca B, Bianca B, Bianca B.